Hello, everyone. This story is like no other. This is the dubious past of Nestlé. Let's say you're Nestlé for a moment. You created the baby formula in the 1970s, saving the lives of infants who would otherwise perish. But then you think, hey, what if you could sell the formula to every mother instead of just those who can't breastfeed? If you could do that, your customer base would increase instantly by 20 to 100 times. This would allow you to expand your formula business even more. However, there is a big problem. Mothers who can breastfeed their children wouldn't even consider buying your artificial product. So you would have to come up with a big lie in order to make them even consider buying your powder as opposed to their natural breast milk. But even if you manage to do so, just helping those mothers isn't enough because it's such a small segment of the population and such a small customer base for someone as big as Nestle. So, first of all, for your plan to even work, you need to trick the public into believing that the formula is superior to natural breast milk because there's a fierce competition from mother's natural milk, which is natural, nutritional, and is far superior to your product. After all, what is your product other than glorified cow's milk mixed with sugar? That's it. That's all you're selling. Probably thinking now, okay, if we do that, aren't we purposefully making babies malnutritioned? Um, Anyways, you need to persuade everyone that formulated milk is infinitely superior to breast milk, which necessitates some form of propaganda that even involves paying doctors to promote your product. The Nestle campaign was created and would go on to become one of the greatest medical scandals of the 20th century from the largest food company in the entire world. It's not an impossible goal to do so, though, right? Because, contrary to the symbol of death and disease it is today, cigarettes were once a cultural icon of sophistication, glamour, sexual allure, and a highly prized commodity for 1 out of every 2 Americans. To understand how we're going to run our propaganda campaign for the baby formula instead of starting from scratch, all we have to do is take a lesson from some of history's foremost experts at swaying public opinion, the cigarette companies. So, how did the cigarette business become associated with elegance? The answer is quite simple. With things like full color magazine advertisements that have respectable looking doctors puffing away while wearing white coats and phrases like, more doctors smoke camels than any other human on the planet. So, it's quite easy. We know what we're gonna do. All we have to do is do the same thing that cigarette companies have done, isn't it? And why did Nestle specifically choose doctors out of everyone? Why did they choose celebrities out of everyone? Well, it's because who do people listen to when they're sick? It's doctors, it's physicians, right? And who do people follow for trends? Celebrities. So, by Nestle choosing these 2 categories, it makes it easier for people to trust their product and trust that the lie that they're selling is true. Nestle's quite smart. You see, they understand the psychological dependence that people have on their doctors. Therefore, they can assume with mathematical certainty that most individuals will follow their advice without even questioning it, or thinking about it, or checking for research. But in case they do, you can always pay for research, fake research, to be done your way. So Nestle thought of everything, and they were ready to take over the world. All they had to do is to persuade moms to pick baby formula over their own natural breast milk. And they got doctors' advice to do that. So, it all begins. You launched Nestle's influencer campaign from the 1970s to basically persuade doctors that formula is good and breast milk is bad. You hire saleswomen, dress them up as nurses, and have them distribute free samples and medical advice in regions like Asia and Africa. You make sure that these samples are big enough, but that by the time they run out, these mothers would have stopped producing breast milk naturally, cementing a lucrative, devoted clientele. Do you pay the doctors and nurses and you recommend the formula as an alternative to breast milk? And of course, you don't care if Africa, one of your biggest markets, has contaminated water. Who cares if the majority of people using your formula don't even know that they need to boil the water first to stop the bacteria in the water to making their babies sick? Who cares if the babies who use fit formula and unhygienic conditions are estimated to have 6 to 25 times higher risk of diarrhea and 4 times higher risk of pneumonia than babies who are breastfed? That's obviously not your fault, right? Everything's going according to plan, but suddenly something goes terribly wrong. Powdered cow's milk, sugar, and vegetable oil aren't even close to real breast milk. They lack nutrients that are necessary to keep the baby alive. And in 1978, Nestle executives were called before the US Senate to explain why so many infants were getting sick and dying after consuming their formulated milk. This wasn't a big hit though, because you can always move your marketing to a region with lower restrictions like Southeast Asia and the Pacific. This will help solve the problem with the WHO's new regulations that forbade comparing breast milk to formulated substitutes. At this point, Nestle was making so much money that they were expected to be worth over $110 billion by 2026. And if you think they stopped there, or you're sadly mistaken, this was just the beginning. To this day, I would argue that you should never give your child any formula that you haven't run by your physician. Formula milk has an average profit margin of about 23%, which means that Nestle gets 23 cents for every dollar in sales. That's a big profit margin. Now, Nestle was obviously not happy and they wanted to increase their sales because 110 billion by 2026 isn't enough. So what did they move on to? They started selling water because everyone needs water to survive, right? And if you can get a tank of water for like $10 and manage to convince people that it's coming from a majestic fountain or clear fountain springs, you can have a ridiculous markup. You can fill it into smaller plastic bottles and sell it for around $50,000, which means that you get $49,990 for every single tank that you fill. But like baby formula, you can only get away with so much in the first world countries. It's the third world countries that where you can really take it to the limit. In Pakistan, it was discovered that in 2013, Nestle was diverting clean water away from villages. And this is not an exaggeration. They were actually taking clean water and trying to divert it away from villages so that they can sell their product more. Nestle literally sold bottles of tap water, with one of the recent lawsuits dating to as early as 2012. And because they couldn't afford to purchase the bottled water that was actually theirs to begin with, the residents of these towns were forced to consume dirty, polluted water. And now, if you thought that Nestle has stopped, then, again, you're sadly mistaken. Okay, so the baby formula is bad. The bottled water is bad. But at least your candy is okay, right? What could be more innocent than Kit Kat? Well, wrong again. Because if you didn't know by now, Nestle did not care about the lives of the people around it. Nestle just wanted to sell. They wanted to get big quick. Every single year, 3 million tons of chocolate are consumed. But have you ever wondered where these cacao crops come from? Well, a significant portion of it, including the Nestle varieties obviously, is grown in Africa, often involving child slavery and forced labor. Nestle promised to freeze chocolate candies from slave labor by 2005, but missed the deadline and all deadlines after that. After decades though, Nestle finally backed down as a result of increasing boycotting pressures, but the harm that their reputation has suffered is irreplaceable. Nestle is currently the largest food corporation in the world, even after years have passed. Because after all, there is global needs that cannot be disputed. Milk, water, baby formula, and yes, even chocolate. People continue to purchase goods from their nearly 2,000 different brands because they've done a good job at keeping their dubious past under wraps. Nestle has 376 factories worldwide, employs nearly 300,000 people, and operates in 190 different countries. Nestle is a powerful food company and has one of the best employers in Europe. Nestle has acknowledged that 60% of its products aren't even healthy. It's crazy how the rich can do anything and get away with it. This is the past of Nestle. If you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like, comment, and follow for more. This is the new channel, so I'd appreciate any help. Thank you.